The fluorescent lights of Anderson's department store buzzed overhead as Marcus Williams stood frozen in the luxury watch section, his 7-year-old daughter's hand trembling in his. The words that had just left the store manager's mouth hung in the air like poison. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the display. We've had issues with people like you in this section." People like you. 3 words that carried centuries of prejudice, delivered with a smile so thin it could cut glass. Marcus felt his daughter's fingers tighten around his, felt her looking up at him with those wide, questioning eyes that still believed the world was fair. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear, but from that soul-deep exhaustion that comes from being judged before you've even opened your mouth. He had saved for 6 months to buy his wife the anniversary watch she'd admired through this very window. 6 months of overtime shifts at the hospital where he worked as a nurse, quarters dropped into a jar on the kitchen counter, small sacrifices that added up to something beautiful. And now this man, this manager with his pressed suit and practiced smile, was telling him he didn't belong here. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, to explain, to defend himself in a ritual he'd performed too many times before. But before he could utter a word, a warm, unmistakable voice spoke from behind him. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear. Is there a problem here?" Marcus turned to see an elderly black man, impeccably dressed in a charcoal blazer and crisp white shirt, his silver beard trimmed to perfection. There was something familiar about him, something in those observant eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. The store manager's face shifted, confusion flickering across his features as recognition slowly dawned. Mr. Freeman," the manager stammered, his face draining of color. I wasn't." Morgan Freeman smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You weren't what, exactly? Weren't profiling this gentleman and his daughter? Weren't making assumptions based on the color of their skin?" He spoke softly, almost gently, which somehow made his words cut deeper. "Please, finish your sentence. I'm curious to hear how it ends." The manager's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Around them, other shoppers had stopped, phones emerging from pockets, cameras pointed in their direction. Marcus felt his daughter press closer to his leg, and he wanted to leave, to escape this humiliation. But something in Morgan Freeman's stance told him to wait, to witness what would unfold. "Sir, I apologize if there was a misunderstanding," the manager finally managed, his voice shaking slightly. "You were simply doing what?" Morgan Freeman interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying an edge now. "Protecting your merchandise from a nurse who works double shifts to provide for his family. A father trying to buy a gift for his wife." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "You don't know this man. You didn't ask him what he needed. You saw his skin and made a judgment. Am I wrong?" The manager's silence was answer enough. Morgan Freeman turned to Marcus, his expression softening. "What were you looking for today, my friend?" Marcus found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "The citizen watch in the case. The one with the blue face. It's my wife's. It would have been our 10th anniversary next week." "Would have been." Morgan Freeman's eyebrows lifted slightly. "She's a teacher. Got called for jury duty. Our anniversary falls right in the middle of the trial. She said we'd celebrate after, but I wanted." Marcus trailed off, feeling foolish now. "I wanted to surprise her anyway. Show her that some dates matter, no matter what." Morgan Freeman nodded slowly, then turned back to the manager. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to open that case. You're going to show this man the watch with the respect you'd show any customer in your store. And then, you're going to apply whatever discount you're authorized to give because I suspect you'd like this conversation to end before more people start recording. Mr. Freeman, And after that, Morgan Freeman continued as if the manager hadn't spoken, "You're going to think long and hard about what happened here today. Not because a celebrity called you out, but because you let your prejudices nearly cost you your humanity. That's the real loss here. Not the sale, not the embarrassment, but the moment you chose to see a threat instead of a person." The manager's hands shook as he unlocked the case and removed the watch Marcus had been admiring. It looked even more beautiful up close, the deep blue face catching the light like ocean water. The manager quoted a price, then, with a glance at Morgan Freeman, lowered it by 20%. Marcus reached for his wallet, but Morgan Freeman placed a gentle hand on his arm. "May I?" he asked quietly. Not because you can't afford it, but because I'd like to be part of something good today. A reminder that kindness exists, even in moments like these. Marcus started to protest, but something in the older man's eyes stopped him. This wasn't pity. This was something else entirely, a shared understanding, perhaps, of what it meant to navigate a world that often saw you as less than. A small gesture to combat a larger pain. Let me buy the watch, Morgan Freeman said, and you take that money you saved and buy your daughter ice cream. Take her to the park. Show her that despite moments like these, there's still goodness in the world. That's what matters. Tears pricked at Marcus's eyes. He looked down at his daughter, who was watching the exchange with wonder written across her face. What do you say, baby? Ice cream sounds good. She nodded vigorously, then looked up at Morgan Freeman. Are you famous? She asked in that blunt way children have of cutting through adult complications. Morgan Freeman chuckled, a warm sound that seemed to ease the tension in the air. I make movies. But you know what makes someone truly famous? Being remembered for kindness. For standing up when it's easier to look away. That's the kind of famous you should aim for, little one. As Morgan Freeman paid for the watch, the manager tried once more to apologize, words tumbling over themselves in desperation. Morgan Freeman held up a hand, silencing him. Save your apologies, he said, not unkindly. Apologizing is easy. Changing is hard. I hope the next time a black man walks into this store with his child, you'll remember this moment. I hope you'll see a father, a customer, a human being. That's the lesson here. Not that you got caught, but that you need to do better. He turned to Marcus, pressing the wrapped watch into his hands. Happy anniversary to you and your wife. May you have many more years together, filled with love and understanding, the kind of understanding that sees beyond surfaces. As Morgan Freeman turned to leave, Marcus called out, wait. How did you know? About my wife, about me being a nurse. Morgan Freeman smiled, a real smile this time. I didn't. But I know what it's like to be judged before you speak. And I've learned that when you see injustice, you don't walk past it. You walk through it. You make noise. You teach the lesson, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because silence is agreement, and I refuse to agree with hatred. He paused at the door, looking back at the growing crowd of shoppers, most still holding their phones. I hope you all got good video, he said, his voice carrying through the store. Post it everywhere. Not to shame one man, but to remind everyone watching that we choose who we are in these moments. We choose whether to look away or step forward. We choose whether to judge or to understand. Make sure you're choosing wisely. And then he was gone, leaving behind a store full of witnesses, a manager who would never forget this day, and a father holding a wrapped gift in his daughter's hand, both now feeling just a little bit heavier with the weight of kindness and the power of standing up for what's right. Marcus knelt down beside his daughter. Remember this, he told her softly. Remember that when someone tries to make you small, there are people in this world who will help you stand tall. And remember that someday, you might be that person for someone else. She nodded solemnly, and together they walked out into the sunshine, toward ice cream and parks in a world that was complicated and flawed, but still, somehow, capable of unexpected grace.